our hope, our strength, and our reasoning. He is our purpose. He is our fulfillment. And we continue to uphold the bloodstained banner to represent the kingdom in the kingdom work. So it is an honor and a privilege to serve. And we're ever grateful for the many, many things that God is doing in our lives. And I just want to celebrate him and give him all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory, because through him all things are possible when we believe. I choose to believe the Lord on today. I choose to search God and depend on God. I choose to serve him. I choose to enjoy my personal relationship with God. Before I can even begin to say anything to anybody, I must be yielded, submitted, surrendered to the power of God. Because, see, this is never about my personal agenda. This is never about to establish a name. This is never about a title or a position. This has everything to do with our posture. Our posture to fulfill and to be humble, to carry out God's calling, God's gift. And that which was of the natural realm of talents being converted into the fulfillment of God's purpose in his plan for our lives. So we are honored to be before you on today. It's been a minute since we've been on here. We had to do a lot of accepting the new challenges that we are facing. But as a servant in the kingdom, we still are in the understanding to carry out a message of hope, a message of change, a message of transformation, a message of transparency, a message of integrity. So it is a privilege and an honor to be before the presence of God in the presence of humanity, never knowing who will hear these few words. I'm not one of the most popular, but I'm one who declares and decree that God is in control. Oh, come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. So we welcome you to A Servant Speaks. A Servant Speaks. And we still standing in the gap for the change of the narrative. We're still upholding holiness and righteousness. We're never to say we have arrived. We never in the posture that we're bigger and better than anybody else. Because we recognize where we have come from. We have come from the many places that many of you have come from. We have been a part of those arenas that many of you still are and connected into. We come to speak life, hope, and strength, healing, breakthrough, deliverance, salvation, redemption, justification to those that have an ear to hear. We thank God for technology. We thank God that we're not just restricted to a certain order or fashion. We are free in the spirit, and we utilize the technology for the purpose of spreading the news, the message, being led by the Spirit of God to deliver hope and promote change for those that are willing to listen. And we understand this may not be for anybody and everybody, but this is not about whether you receive or not. This is about carrying out the word that God has placed inside of his servant, to carry out purpose, to fulfill his destiny, and to remain humble and submitted to authority, submitted to the spiritual covering, the leaders that God has placed in our lives. So it is an honor to be before you on today to celebrate life. And this is the beauty, people of God, our people, period, okay? This is what I discover, and this is what I can appreciate God in who he is, in the majesty of his power, his order, his direction, and what he purposed for us on today. This is a fact that we cannot deny. And the fact is, you and I are alive today. We are alive today. We are breathing the breath of life. And that breath of life comes from God. That breath of life comes from God. And guess what, people? Guess what? It wasn't just the saved that raised up this morning. The just and the unjust woke up today. He didn't have a respect of persons. Some didn't wake up, some he called home. Some it was their time, and their time was up. That's just a fact of life. Everyone who died today wasn't a bad person. Everyone who died today wasn't a good person. Everyone who died today didn't die because of sickness or illness or persecution or abuse. This was God's design. This is God's choice, and he does what he does because he is God. Some things we will not understand until we get to glory. Some things we don't have an explanation, and that's okay. My question is, how well do you trust God today? How well have you listened to the voice of God? And are you in the place, in the posture to hear God? I need to know this. I need to know this. I need you to know that value and that worth. Can you hear God? Can you hear his voice? Can you follow his lead on today? And if you don't know him at that measure, my words of encouragement is you can learn God. You can hear God. You can receive God on today. I had something written out on today, but he's taken me this way. Somebody's going to get on here. Somebody's going to want to know something greater, something different, something of substance, something of hope, something of strength. Somebody's going to get on here with questions. Somebody's searching for answers. Somebody's going to search for strength. Someone wants something different, something greater than the sum of their issues and their challenges that we face day in and day out. Somebody's searching for something. There's a yearning down on the inside. And as quiet as kept, some of what we're seeking, some of what we're asking can't come from nobody else. It can't come from man's ideology, man's philosophy, man's interpretation. It goes sometimes greater and deeper than just that. And some fulfillment, some understanding, some wisdom, some interpretation, some discernment only comes by hearing God. Certain fulfillments only come by the way of God. Some understandings is only cleared through God. Certain interpretations, certain discernments, certain wisdom, certain knowledge, certain skills, certain learnings is only by the move in the connecting to God. And I know this may not be for everybody because some of you may understand that already. But for this reason, God wants this to be understood for those that already know and those that don't know. That no one is left out. And everyone is significant for God's purpose, God's plan, God's direction. He's leading you and he's leading me. He's leading humanity. My question is, can you hear him? And do you know how to get in that place to hear? Have you accepted the invitation that God offered? He's always speaking. He's always having his way of bringing his awareness into our lives. Are you in the place of receiving and hearing God? Have you been one of those that happen to be on the groove tube, the entertainment devices that many of us carry in our pocket? carry in their bags, you know, all that technology. And sometimes you stumble on a channel or a chat or a video or changing and surfing the internet or on the groove tube, and you happen to hear a message that is a little different than something you have heard before, or in some cases of identifier to something you've already heard. But something has drawn you to his voice, to his guidance, to his direction. So life now has a greater meaning than before. Yeah, we all face our challenges and our issues. Yes, we do. No one is exempt from issues and challenges. It's where do we put our trust in? Where are we getting our source? Where do we get our truth? Where are we getting our understanding? Where are we getting our interpretation? Where does our concepts and precepts come from? Why is this important? Because there's a direction that's greater than just you and I. There's a greater purpose than just you and I. There's a communication, there is a fellowship, there is a relationship that's being established and developed. And you and I all, at one point in time, come to an understanding that the picture is bigger than just you and I. So I'm encouraging that our strength, our hope, our understanding, our real truth begins when we discover who God is. And this is what I understand. God is for all humanity. It's up to us as human beings to recognize who he is and get to know him. How do we get to know him? We get to know him by establishing that authentic and transparent relationship. Now, for some, it comes instantly, and for others, there's a greater process. It doesn't matter how you get to know him, but you get to know him and learn how to do it his way. I remember in my younger years, my parents started me off in a change, not knowing that change would alter every aspect of my life. Now, of course, when it was introduced to me, I didn't see the value back then. I was younger. I was not in that frame of mind. I wasn't in that posture, so I didn't see the worth. But it was something about going to Barry Long Methodist Church on 58th and Springfield Avenue in Philadelphia, PA. I don't remember all the people. I just remember the encounterment that I encountered when I first went to church. It started something in me that I didn't recognize what it was, but I knew it was something different. It was different than what was going on in my home. The atmosphere was different. I didn't understand why it was different. I just knew it was different. I began to hear the people in the church singing songs, and something about those hymns was working in me. Not understanding the value and the worth of the song, but I knew something was different. A new thing was being given unto me. It wasn't like the atmosphere at my home. It wasn't like the conversations I heard at home, or the conversations I heard when I went over to my relatives' houses, or the conversations I was experiencing in the classrooms of the public school system, or the conversations that I heard when I was growing up in the streets. Back then, I didn't know nothing about the power of prayer, but I remember this. I didn't have perfect parents. My parents had challenges. But this is what I remember. I remember my mom setting me down at the bedside. And I believe it was me and my brothers. And she taught me an old prayer. Come on, I don't know about y'all, but I remember that old prayer. Lama lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Now, did my parents have all the understanding of biblical understanding? I don't know where my mom and my dad got that prayer from. All I know is a seed was planted in them, and then they planted a seed in me and my brothers. Were we biblically correct back then? No, we wasn't. Did we understand going to Barry Long Methodist Church, what that was all about? Did we even understand what was being spoken to us through the Sunday school and the Sunday school teacher? All I knew that there was a drawing to something different. So I'm going somewhere. I'm going somewhere. There, we have all come from various walks of life, and many of us have many challenges we grew up under. Many of us have much pressure of oppositions and challenges. Some of us experience great compromise, deceptions, false positives, trying to get our attention, a persuasion. And I'm not saying everybody has that experience. Some didn't grow up under that pressure, didn't grow up with those challenges. To God be the glory. Whatever your process is and was, but through it all, can you hear God? Even in the good, the bad, and the ugly. I didn't understand that back then. No, I didn't. There was a lot of things I didn't like when I was growing up. And I used to make it as a reasoning and my excuse to make the decisions that I did. But can I encourage you? Through my process, God was always there. I'm trying to help somebody. Through the process, God was always there. I never recognized him as being there. I didn't come to that understanding. No, I didn't. But as I grew and as I developed a relationship with God, I discovered he was always there. I don't know who this is for. You may not know God like I know him. But it begun somewhere. It wasn't easy growing up where I came from. I'm not going to say my mom was a super spiritual mother. But whatever her level of spirituality and her relationship with God, she started me and my brothers off with that old prayer. And when I reflect back on that prayer, it lays a foundation to where I am today. Lama lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. I don't remember all the lyrics after that. That's what I remember right now. Not knowing the value of that then, was God speaking to me back then to bring me where I am today. But my assurance to wherever you are in God, wherever your relationship is, whatever your challenge may be, wherever you have come from, wherever you've been through, yet God was there. He knew. He ain't surprised and he wasn't oblivious. Everybody's journey is not the same journey. My prayer is when he makes himself more available and aware in your present circumstance and situation. Whatever it takes to draw your attention to who he really is. My prayer is that you would receive him. All the abuse, the pain, the hurt, the suffering, the misuse, the lies, the many challenges. Through it all, God still had his way of getting my attention. I have no regrets. I have no regrets of the good, the bad, or the ugly. The ups, downs, and crazy turnarounds. This is far greater than what I went through. My prayer is whoever listens to this message, that through whatever you've gone through, you see change, you see hope. Something that has been spoken generates thought and hope. I heard this phrase a long time ago, and when I heard it, I didn't understand the value of when I heard it until later on in life. And that phrase is, it won't always be like this. Hey, yaba, ikabaso, yabamande sha. Oh, glory. And I can hear my wife's voice in the background, and I did a lot of speaking, and I said a lot, but I don't want you to think that this is my opinion. For me, my truth, my reality is after I begin to know who God is and develop an authentic and transparent relationship with God, to discover, the more I read Genesis to Revelation, Revelation back to Genesis, I develop a relationship in a greater understanding, wisdom, discernment, interpretation, knowledge of who God is. I didn't always know this. I went through a lot of ups, downs, and crazy turnarounds. The devil was on my track. He never wanted me to get to this place of understanding. But I remember hearing this phrase through the child guidance clinics that I used to have to go through, speaking to all kinds of psychiatrists, going in and out of programs, reform school, prison times, and the many challenges, taking all kinds of medication. Then the experience of self-medication. But I remember that phrase at a very young age. It will not always be like this. Oh, come on, somebody. And let me give some foundation. And I only know it through the Word of God. Genesis to Revelation, and from Revelation back to Genesis. And just for this segment, I want to go to Exodus, the 3rd chapter, the 1st to the 8th verse. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up. A time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, a time to sow, a time to keep silence, a time to speak, a time to love, a time to hate, a time to war, and a time to peace. So in those 8 verses, the sum of your challenges and the sum of your experience, the sum of what you face in today, can I encourage you today? It will not always be like this. It will not always be bad. It will not always be good. It will not always be like this. My prayer is that everyone get to know who God is. And can I take it a little step further? Just a little bit. And this is pertinent to whatever level you are in your walk of spiritual awareness, whether you saved or unsaved. God has purpose for you. You may not recognize it today. My prayer is that you do and you hear, because there's many times he has spoken and we just didn't recognize it was him. Through the good, the bad, and the ugly, the up, down, and the crazy turnaround. My prayer is that when he makes himself available and more tangible to your personal walk, your personal life, that you begin to respond. Not just because that's what your grandmother did or what she said, and your mommy, your daddy, your uncle, your aunt, your cousin, your neighbor, the preacher. No, I'm talking about your personal walk with him. For a period of time, I was going to church, but I was being more indoctrinated in the letter of the law, the letter of doctrine, the letter of legalism. I didn't discover relationship with him until later. My prayer that we all get to that place where we get to know him. So I pray that whoever listens to this segment, this small message, that life begins to open up, that there's something on the inside of you. Gravitate to something greater than you or me. It begins with recognizing that there is something greater than me. For many years, I walked around in selfishness and ignorance and arrogance because I was hurt. I was abused, lied on, beaten on, and many other aspects. But do you know something I discovered? Through all the crazy ups, downs, turnarounds, God still had purpose. He knew everything that was going on. Only thing today, I'm in a greater grace and a greater gratefulness because he kept me. And he's keeping me. And when I look at the many phases of areas in my life, it was by his grace he didn't let me get but so far into the various challenges that I've been through. That today I can speak about a relationship where relationships begin. It begins with God. I pray that my message is that simple that you can gravitate and you can understand it. That it promotes encouragement, promotes hope, and produce change. That you and I in this journey discover the greater of the value of who he really is. And that you and I grow in the Spirit of God and receive him more than we did yesterday. Receive him more than just what the preacher said. Receive more than just what mama and daddy said and this, that, and another. That it becomes more personal. That you and I discover that there's something better. And that there's a time and a season for everything. And we don't have to just succumb to the issues of life. That we discover that there's something far greater than whatever we've been through. That there is a joy, there is a peace that surpasses all understanding. Believe it or not, I had a whole nother thing I was going to deal with today. But being a sensitive in the spirit and hearing his voice, I pray that something we spoke on today promotes change and hope and that their steps gravitate to the leading of his Spirit, and that you and I develop a stronger ear to hear God, to see God, to smell God, to taste God, to feel God, not from the natural understanding and concept of nature, of the flesh. And that we recognize what we are dealing with and what we have been dealing with comes from of a spiritual understanding more so than what we are experiencing from the flesh. Now that's a message for a greater, for another time. This is to lay a foundation to promote change and hope in our lives, and to bring us to an awareness that we need God. I don't care who you are. I don't care how big you think you are or how big I may have thought I was. This is about submission. Submitting to something better. Now, just because you become aware of who God is and develop your relationship with God, that doesn't mean that you will not go through and you will not face challenges. But the beauty is you can face your issues and challenges from a greater strength than your own strength. Oh, come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. You can experience a greater witness, a greater power, a greater understanding, wisdom, concept, discernment, interpretation than that of some of the books we read. Some of the false positives we have seen on television, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all those apparatuses of instruments that has been used in many cases to desensitize us to that which is of God. I used to think certain adults were so cool in my life. I remember growing up wanting to be like them. And I followed that pattern for a long time. I thought that was the way of life. I thought that was the road of success. See, I can talk about me. I ain't tripping on nobody else. And I'm not blaming nobody else. I'm here to speak life. I'm in this season speaking life and not death. I'm not talking about bitterness, angry, resentment, rejection, abandonment. I'm not here to harp on the pains and the suffering. I'm here to let you know that it will not always be like this. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. No matter where you are in life and what you're going through, everything is not permanent. Nothing you're going through is permanent. The only part that may appear to be permanent is when God is speaking. We do not answer. And we don't respond. Then there is something permanent. is where we're going to end up eternally. And I know I'm different. I know I don't do things the way other people do. This is just the way God gave it to me to give to others on today. I prayed before I spoke today. And I'm praying that somebody will just surf the net or whatever, however people discover these videos and these messages. That something that I said today generate hope and change in your journey. To know that it won't always be like this. That's my message for today. It will not always be like this. According to Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heavens. I pray that encourages you. Wherever you are, whatever the walk you are in, that you have the golden opportunity that if it ain't the way you designed it or the way you thought it was going to be or thought or whatever your concept and precept was. And even if you have a relationship with God and you're still faced with challenges, can I encourage you in this sense? It will not always be like this. It's Sabbath. Oh, glory. I'm learning to discover God even the more. And I've been saved for a minute. But today is still refreshing to me. I'm still learning. I'm still developing. I'm still being shaped and molded into that which reflects Him, not me. It's not about me. So I'm loving God even greater than I did yesterday. And guess what? There was a phenomenal service on yesterday at God's church, the city of Stockton, under the leadership of the Team Houston. Phenomenal team. And I got a piece of the message just for myself. And still interceding and praying for others. But today was a refreshing for me. And God brought to my attention how much He was there for me. Like I said, I didn't have perfect parents. But I remember being a young kid. I remember that old prayer. Lama lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Wow. Wow. And when I get off of here, I'm going to look up that entire prayer because I didn't know the value then.